Hello! Today's project is a t-shirt modification to this t-shirt. This t-shirt used to be my most worn t-shirt. It had another section on here. Actually, this was the other section. So it was a big oversized t-shirt that went like down to here. And then I stained the bottom of it. Not even sure how. It looks like maybe dirt. Maybe I wore it on a hike or something. And it wouldn't come out, so I just cut off the bottom and was like, I'll wear a cropped t-shirt. But since the t-shirt is so big, the cropped just doesn't really work. I just haven't been wearing it. I cropped it a few weeks ago. I used to wear this shirt multiple times a week, but ever since I cropped it, I haven't really been picking it up. This is the only shirt I have in this color, and I've been needing it for outfits. So, since it has served its life as a big shirt, I'm now rebirthing it as a little shirt. I've been rewatching a couple episodes of Friends, and I'm just a big fan of their 90s baby tees that they wear, and so I figured I would turn this into one of those. Right now, the only baby tee that I own that I like the fit is this one. It's just a plain white shirt that has also served its life because I've worn it while eating chocolate ice cream and empanadas. So it is thoroughly stained and greased up. But I still really like the shape, so I've been keeping it so that I can use it as a template to make copies of it, to clone it in other colors. I've seen people converting their big t-shirts into baby tees, and I've always wanted to try it. So today is the day. I am going to keep the neckline the same. I feel fine about this neckline. So I'm just basically going to change the shape of it. And I think I might do lettuce hems instead of hemming it. We'll see how I feel when I get to that point. So here we go.
First thing I did was test out my lettuce hem technique because I needed to know how I was hemming the shirt before I cut it. So I put on all the recommended settings to my serger and tried out the lettuce hem. This is the first time that I have attempted doing a lettuce hem, and the results were just not quite what I wanted. It did make it a little bit wavy, but it just wasn't quite the look that I had envisioned. So I decided, never mind, this project is not the project for lettuce hems. So now I'm going into the cutting of the shirt, knowing that I need to add on a little bit of seam allowance for that bottom hem and for the sleeve hems. So I laid out my big t-shirt as flat as possible, which is always hard to do with t-shirt fabric, and I'm only working on the torso shape right now, so I didn't worry about getting the sleeves flat. Then I laid out my little t-shirt that I'm using as a template. I laid it out on top. Oh, by the way, all of this I am laying inside out so that I can see all the seams. My little t-shirt was a little bit unruly, so I decided to just work on it one half first. So I lined up the necklines, the edge of the necklines, and then straightened out the right side of the shirt and started tracing. To trace it, I just kind of folded the sleeve to the side. So I traced that curve, and then I traced the side seam of the little shirt, just using some Taylor's chalk. And right now I'm not worrying about adding on a seam allowance. I'm just tracing it exactly, and I will worry about adding the seam allowance as I'm cutting. Sorry if my voice sounds a little bit sicky right now. It's because I am a little bit sick. Once I had everything traced, I just cut it with my rotary cutter. Also, sorry, I realized that this overhead camera angle is a little bit too overhead. But anyway, as I cut, I just added on the tiniest bit of seam allowance because I'm just going to be sewing these edges together with a serger, just with the overlock stitch, so it doesn't need a lot of seam allowance. And then I pinned the sides together so that they don't lose their position, because I hate trying to realign the t-shirt fabric. It always curls up super quickly. So once I had that side good to go, I folded it over as exactly in half as possible so that I could make the t-shirt symmetrical. Since I had the pins in place, I couldn't just cut down this seam, so I traced that side with chalk, and then I cut out the arm hole just using the first side as a pattern, and then I cut along the line that I traced, and I was able to have the torso of my shirt cut out. I put some pins in place to hold the sides together on this side as well, and then decided that I was going to deal with that bottom hem later, after I have already sewed the sides and tried on the shirt so that I can tell exactly how long I wanted the shirt to be. Then I brought it over to my sewing table and just serged down the side seams. Simple enough. Quick progress check. Cute. I could even probably take off a little bit more. Hemmed like to here. Do I want it tighter or do I want to leave it like this? I should probably also take a little bit more off the shoulders. After the try on, I decided I needed to bring in the shoulder seam just slightly. I cut off about 1/4 of an inch off of that top seam. And then I decided to keep the width the same so I didn't touch the side seams, and I just decided where my bottom hem was going to be. So based off of my model, I wanted it to be slightly longer than the shirt that I was using as reference, but I also wanted the hem to be about 1 inch thick. I like it when the bottom hem is a little bit thicker. So I cut off the appropriate amount, and then I flipped the shirt over and made sure the sleeve cutouts were now symmetrical. And now it's time to cut out the actual sleeves. So using, again, my reference shirt to see how long that sleeve is from shoulder to bottom seam, I decided to take my original sleeves and keep that original sleeve hem in place. So I was going to use the original sleeve hem, just cut out the new curve so that I could attach the sleeve. So I basically just, well, this is me miming the cut that I'm going to make before I actually cut it. I just followed along the curve. I placed the sleeve where I wanted it to be, and then I just followed along the curve, and when I got to the very bottom, where the armpit would be, I just kind of curved, like S-curved out, if that makes sense. And then to cut out the second sleeve, I just traced the first sleeve that I cut. So I just laid it on top. Again, I'm using the original hem of the sleeve, and I'm just cutting out the new sleeve curve to attach it to the shirt. Then back to the sewing table, and the way that I like to attach the sleeves is finding the center of the sleeve and lining it up with the shoulder seam of the shirt. I didn't pin anything on this one because the t-shirt fabric is pretty forgiving. I figured it would be fine. So I just started serging at the shoulder seam, of course putting right sides together. And then I just started at the shoulder seam and sewed all the way down until I hit the side seam, like where underneath the armpit would be. And then I stopped there and went back to the shoulder seam and sewed down the other way. So the first time I sewed down the front of the shirt, I attached the front part of the sleeve, and then I went back to the shoulder seam and attached the back part of the sleeve. Once I finished sewing down both sides of the sleeve, this is what it looks like. So everything is attached except for that bottom part of the sleeve is just kind of hanging loose. And the way I cut out the sleeve should have left some extra room or some extra fabric hanging off the side. And this is so that I can sew off that bottom part. So I'm just going to kind of follow the side seam and just cut off that excess fabric as I sew the bottom part of the sleeve together. This is proving to be rather difficult to explain with words, but hopefully this is making sense with the video attached. I'm not an expert at sleeves, but this is what it looks like afterwards. This is kind of the simple way that I have found to do sleeves. And then once I got both sleeves attached, I just serged around the entire bottom of the shirt and I'm almost done. The only thing I have to sew with my regular sewing machine is that bottom hem. Since I kept the hem of the sleeves, I didn't have to sew any of that, so I just have to do the bottom hem. So since I like a thicker hem, I folded up the bottom of the shirt about 1 inch and then just straight stitch all the way around. I also like to sew the hem as closely to the edge as possible, but when I finished this one, it still had a little bit of extra hanging off fabric, and I just don't really like the way that sits on my body when it's kind of hanging loose like that. So I decided to do a double stitch line across the bottom, and I just went around the same exact hem that I just did, just following my original stitch line to have a parallel stitch line running right next to it. That'll just really secure those ends. Another fit check. Okay, cute. I like it. My sleeves definitely need some work. They're a little bit wrinkly there. They kind of scrunch up a bit. But other than that, I think that the fit is really cute. The last thing I want to do is add some type of decor here, either applique or embroidery. So I'm going to do that now. I have decided what I'm going to embroider on the shirt. After scrolling through Pinterest, I rediscovered this artist that I love her work. She is this Indonesian artist that does embroidery. I think her name is Nanjiren. I don't know if that is pronouncing it right. She embroiders these little women that have these amazing clothes on, and her work, she's incredible. I'm nowhere near that level of embroidery or design. It inspired me to think about, I have this little kind of mascot to my clothing brand. It's this little stick figure that I dress up in my clothes. I think I'm just going to have to cover up my other drawings that didn't make the final cut, but something like this. My embroidery skills are really low, so I figure this is something in my realm of possibility, doing a stick figure. Probably going to draw it to scale on paper first and then kind of trace it onto the shirt. Started off by measuring the size of rectangle of the space that I want these figures to take up on the shirt, and then I divided it into sections and started drawing my figures. The goal here was to make them as size similar as possible. And then I decided the best way to go about this was to just tape the rectangle onto the back of the shirt as I embroidered. I know that there are better ways to do this if I were to use a stabilizer of some kind, but for now, with the materials that I have, this is what I'm doing. And I just started backstitching all of the figure lines. Okay, I just finished the black thread. And then I'm going to do colors for all the clothes. It's turning out cuter than I was expecting. First outfit in green. It was getting too
complicated to continue stitching with the paper on because it was hard to tear it away when I was blocking it in. So anyway, removed the paper and just doing the clothes freehand, which is fine. Because once I had the stick figures in place, that was really the only thing that I was worried about, of like making them symmetrical and everything. So I'm doing the clothes freehand, finished the middle one, it's blue, just the last one is left. And last one, little overalls. Okay, the final result. I think it turned out so cute. My stick figures, it still has a little bit of a ring from the embroidery hoop, but I am kind of tempted to do this to more t-shirts now. I like the little images. I think I got them mostly straight, so that's a win. Thank you for joining me on this t-shirt flip experience. I hope to see you on my next project.